Looking at the Kenyan shilling, which was steady in early trade, supported by tea exporters selling dollars. Traders do expect the shilling to come under pressure from foreign investors exiting the stock market. For more on how the Kenyan currency performed today and recently, we're joined by Ignatius Chicha, who is head of markets at Citibank. Hi there, Ignatius. The shilling at 85.50, it's an 8-week low. My impression is also that it's becoming volatile again after a period of relative stability. I remember towards the end of last year, every day we'd be saying the central bank intervened, and we hadn't been saying that so much. So where is the shilling now?
Well, thank you. The shilling today closed at 85.40 against 85.50, down 0.4% on where we had closed at yesterday. I think what we're seeing now in the market is offshore investors who had invested in the equities and fixed incomes in the first quarter of the year now taking profit.
Okay, and the banks covering their positions?
Usually that's the trend in the market, is that when you have the demand coming from the offshore players, is that then the local market players are a bit jittery and they would love to close the day either sitting square too long until we are able to establish that the offshore demand has been fulfilled or has suddenly gone away.
What's driving the foreign investors with the exiting of the market? That's one step removed from the shilling. The effect on the shilling is the effect. So it's the second round, if you like. The first round, what is the reason for that, and to what extent is it Kenya, and to what extent is it global markets, global trends?
Well, I think if we look at Kenya, in the run-up to the elections held in March, I think the trade was pretty good for Kenya. One, people were pretty positive that the elections would come and go peacefully. So we had a lot of offshore investors coming to buy into the equities. Also, the interest rates were pretty high at that point, somewhere up in the double digits, around 11 to 12%. And given that inflation was running around 4.11%, that gave you quite a substantial yield carry. Subsequent to the elections coming out, I think we've seen profit taking, because I think part of that rally was sentimental on the equity side opposed to actual fundamentals. And also on the interest rate side, the rates have really come off significantly since the end of the quarter. I mean, today we just had the 91-day T-bill, the 192-day T-bill come in at 6.7 compared to earlier on at 7.98%.
The importance of tea in the performance of the shilling, and it's sporadic perhaps, but it's always important. Ted, did you hear my question? Talking about the importance of tea.
Of tea?
Yes, tea, the beverage.
Yes. I think tea still remains a key component of the dollar flows into the market. They are a regular player in the market, and like you initially stated, today they were also in the market. So between say, the central bank and the tea industry, I think those are some of the two key sources of foreign exchange and help in the stability on a week-by-week basis.
I'm afraid I called you by the wrong name there, Ignatius. Called you by the name of the previous interviewee that I was talking to. Just looking at the current account deficit, the sort of bigger picture for the economy, that's something the Reserve Bank, the government has to watch while this shilling moves around and the Reserve Bank influences it.
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, if you look at the current account deficit, currently on 9.8% of GDP at 4.5 billion, it is a significant amount, but I think one has to take into account that in the last couple of years, a lot of our imports have gone towards infrastructure. So I think that is more an investment for the future, and I think it's a number which is likely to remain high for the next couple of years.
Okay, so now we've got the MPC coming up. What direction are we going to get from them, and what are they going to do? From where I'm sitting, if I look at where the rates have gone, most of the short end of the yield curve is now below the current CBR of 8.5. Domestic credit extension is at 16.5% against a target of 18.7.
I think there's room for the central bank and the MPC to cut, I think, by another 50 basis points. Potentially, we see it at 8. I think a key determinant to that will be where the June inflation number comes in at, because as of May, inflation was at 4.05%.
So what are you expecting?
We expect a cut from 8.5 to 8%.
And for the inflation rate?
Inflation rate, I think, most likely, I think now we are seeing consolidation for the month of June. So perhaps we go back to 4.1%. And going into the second half of the year, purely on base effects, I think we'll start seeing the currency, so the inflation rate starting to climb.
Well, and looking again perhaps at the biggest picture of all, and that's the national budget. It's budget season in East Africa. Finance ministers from 4 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania and Rwanda, looking to get their budgets out tomorrow. So it's an unusual opportunity to look at all 4 at once. What are you expecting from them?
Well, I think for all the countries and Kenya in particular, I think we already know that there is a heavy amount of expenditure which is being budgeted for. I think the question in terms of the dynamics of how they impact the markets is how the revenue side will be constructed. So how much of it will be out of taxes, how much is domestic borrowing, and how much will be dependent on the foreign flows.